Tunisian President Zeid visited Egypt between the 9th and 11th of April at the invitation of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Talks between the two leaders focused on bolstering bilateral, political, security, economic and cultural relations, and building a consensus on regional issues of mutual interest, including the Libyan crisis, combating trans-border terrorism, ending foreign interference in Arab domestic affairs, and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The leaders of Egypt and Tunisia emphasized identical views on regional issues, promising wider horizons and new means of cooperation. They agreed on countering all terrorist organizations without exceptions, undermining their abilities to recruit new elements and drying up the sources of their funding. On the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the Tunisian President Zeid firmly announced, "I say it before the entire world, we are looking for just solutions, as the Egyptian national security is our own. Egypt's position in any international forum is ours." The Tunisian president also added that Tunisia will not accept in any way jeopardizing the water security of Egypt. The two presidents declared all possible support for the Libyan executive authority to hold elections by the end of 2021, calling for a contentious Libyan dialogue and for the removal of mercenaries and foreign fighters from the country to preserve its stability, security and resources. They also refused the idea of dividing Libya on a wider scale. They called for Arab solidarity and the rejection of foreign interference. While talks focused on regional issues, bilateral cooperation between Egypt and Tunisia was also on the agenda, highlighting that both sides aspire to increase cooperation and investment.
Right, welcome back, and we return to our topic of tonight, and returning to the Jed and the developments in the Jed, but this time we're speaking about this issue in a more technical and specific way. We have with us over the phone Dr. Khaled Abu Zeid, International Water Resources Director. Good evening to you, Dr. Khaled.
Good evening, Mrs. Mona, and greetings to you and to the distinguished viewers.
Ramadan Kareem for you and your beloved family, Dr. Khaled.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. Let me take it here, or start with why Egypt is keen on achieving a legally binding agreement on the filling and operation of the Jed.
This is a very important step in the process of the GERD and to finalize the GERD issue because of the potential impacts of the GERD on Egypt. This could happen several years down the road. It may not happen right now, so there has to be a legally binding agreement that protects against any harm to Egypt's water resources. As you know, the Nile is the main source of water for Egypt, and it is very important to protect against any harm that may be caused by the dam. And if there is no legally binding agreement, things could change, leaders change. What about the future generations? How are they going to be protected? This has to be in a written agreement, of course.
Right.
What will happen, not just during the filling of the dam, but most importantly during the operation of the dam, and the operation of the dam during the years of drought.
During the years. We're speaking here, Dr. Khaled, just for people to understand what we are speaking about and why can this harm Egypt. We're speaking here about three stages, or three threats, three stages: the times of drought, the times of flooding, and the times. I mean, here, would you please explain what or why are we very concerned in the different stages of the filling process?
the filling and the operation as well.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And let me just add one thing regarding the importance of a binding agreement, is that in case there is any conflict, God forbid, that may occur on the operation or on the filling, what could be the conflict resolution mechanism? This is also something that needs to be included in the binding agreement. That's why it has to be a binding agreement, so that there would be also articles for how to deal with resolving any potential conflict between the three countries, for instance.
In the coming years, yes. Before I come to this, because I need to discuss this last point again, but let me take from you first, why is Egypt so much concerned with the filling process, and what harms came for Sudan and for Egypt in the first filling process, and why is Egypt so concerned with the second filling process? How would that harm Egypt? What are the stages that we are, or how is the filling in 3 stages, or what we are concerned about here? Please explain.
See, this second stage of the filling is planned by Ethiopia to be around 13.5 billion cubic meters. This will bring the total storage of the GERD to about 18.5 billion cubic meters. And this is what we call the dead storage, or the water that need to be in the dam to cover the pumps, the electro hydropower pumps by a certain height. So this amount of water is supposed to be there, and it will be reduced from any storage in the High Aswan Dam lake. And it will be cut also from the flows that goes to Sudan and Egypt. So this means that if, for instance, this year is a drought year, we don't know what will be the flood this year. If it's a flood, if it's a drought year, for instance, then this will have a significant impact on the amount of water that goes to Sudan and to Egypt. So therefore, they have to be prepared for something like that. Also, the timing of the filling is very important for Sudan, because Sudan is the first country downstream of the dam, and it has the Roseras Dam just downstream of the GERD, the Renaissance Dam, and this the impact of the timing of the filling is important for Sudan. If they fill up the dam all at once, every drop of water that comes is used for filling up. This will dry up the dams in Sudan, and it will affect the water that they need for their hydropower, for their drinking water facilities, for their irrigation projects. So the timing of the filling of the dam is important for Sudan. Would they be filling at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season? Is it going to be scattered all over the flood period from July until September? Is it going to be distributed equally among this period, or is it going to be all at once at the beginning? This is very important for Sudan. So this is one thing. But the other thing is that to fill the dam and to start having the dam with water inside with no agreement in place is going to be very critical, because what's even more important is the long-term operation of the dam. The long-term, if you don't have agreed rules for the operation of the dam, especially during the droughts, then who knows what will happen when a drought comes, if it's not this year, and if it is several years down the road. What will guarantee how Ethiopia will be operating the dam in order not to affect the downstream countries? And especially if it's a prolonged drought, if there are several years of drought that comes after one another, with no rules for how to deal with the operation of the dam. This may be affecting Egypt and Sudan. Because
maybe it's for sure
yeah, because the High Aswan Dam Lake may have been dropped down during those prolonged drought years, and Ethiopia may need to maximize the hydropower generation, maintaining a lot of water behind the dam to generate and maximize the hydropower generation, but without giving attention to what would happen and the impact that would happen downstream to Egypt, which might be suffering from a depleted reservoir and no income coming from the Blue Nile. So this is very, very important to agree on these issues and on these rules and regulations beforehand.
Yes, Dr. Khaled, I have three very important questions and we need to go with them. First, what were the repercussions of the first filling, the negative repercussions that came out of the first filling on Sudan particularly, and then on Egypt?
Yes, the first filling really affected Sudan very much because at the beginning of the season we heard about the rapid filling of the dam, and that affected the flows that went to Sudan, which used to depend on that water at the beginning of the flood to generate its hydropower and to operate its drinking water facilities. And those were affected by the decreased flow of the Blue Nile, which affected some of their plants and facilities and pumps because there was not enough water to operate them. And that was very critical. And then at the end of the season, they also released, when the dam was filled, they had to release the coming flows all at once, and that came also at the wrong timing. So that was a big impact on Sudan.
Yes.
On Egypt, that particular year, it didn't have that much of an impact. But again, I mean, since Egypt is downstream, it is more affected by the drought years. And that year was an okay year. It was not that
yes, because there were
much
floods,
of a drought year. But the impact happens at the long term, and that's why the rules of operation is even also more important than the filling for Egypt.
Yes, and the first filling was only 5 billion cubic meters. We're speaking here about 13.5 billion cubic meters. I'll take the two questions in one because I don't have that time. First, let me know what exactly is Egypt asking or calling for from Ethiopia? What does Egypt want in this agreement? And why this agreement should include what can resolve any dispute that can occur after the signing of this agreement?
Well, Egypt just wants to have a legally binding agreement. We cannot agree on rules for operation of such a huge dam or filling of such a huge dam with no written agreement and just verbally like that. You don't know what would happen in the future. And especially an agreement that would specify the rules of operation during the years of drought and prolonged droughts, and also the filling and the refilling, because operation means when the dam is empty down the road because of increased releases or something, then they have to fill it again. So that's refilling the dam again, and that is part of the operation. So there has to be also rules and regulations for that. And then a conflict resolution mechanism in case any conflict happens. What would be the mechanism for conflict resolution, mediation. Should they go to a certain court for arbitration? What exactly? Which court? Things like this. This has to be very clear.
Right. Have we seen any other, or do you see any other way than doing or than agreeing such an agreement to solve this dispute?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there has to be this agreement in place.
Right.
I mean, when on a very important river like that, with a very huge dam, that's an oversized dam. Even it's
Yes.
not. It's overly built, overly designed. But if that's going to be the final size of the dam, there has to be an agreement. There's no way around that.
And I don't have even the time to ask you about the repercussions of the final filling and its threat to the construction, but we will be continuing with that on Dr. Khaled Abu Zeid, International Water Resources Director. I thank you so much for being with us tonight and for explaining all the technical issues. And I guess that brings us to the end of this episode of Tonight. Tomorrow would be...
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of this episode. Tomorrow would be another debate with another colleague. Till tomorrow, good night.